Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you're joining us from around the world. We'll wait a couple of minutes to let everybody into the room for the event, and then we'll start.
Good morning, everyone.
Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us.
No, very happy to be with you here this morning.
Good morning.
We are just about ready to start now. I think we've had everybody in the room. There are colleagues watching from both the Zoom platform and the Wahova platform. So let me first start by welcoming you to the side event, to ask that you mute if you're not speaking. And also that if there will be opportunities for interaction with our distinguished panelists and speakers. So if you're interested in taking the floor, please indicate it in the chat, ideally on the Zoom platform, if not the Wahova platform as well, as we will be checking both. If you're on the Zoom platform, we will try and see if we can upgrade you to that so that you'll be able to turn on your cameras. But just in case we're unable to do that, given the limitations of the platform, please don't hesitate to put your question or comment to the panelists in the chat itself, and we can help you read that out. So with that being said, all the formalities out the way, again, thank you so much for joining us, especially for those in New York. It's a little bit early, but we really want to accommodate an international audience. So thank you for taking the time out of your morning very early to join us. Ladies and gentlemen, we're so pleased to welcome you to the side event on digitalization to achieve the SDGs, reflecting on how the UN can better support countries on digital and digital transformation and the achievement of the SDGs. We will begin with opening remarks by Ambassador Alicia Buenrostro, Deputy Permanent Representative of the Permanent Mission of Mexico here to the United Nations. Ambassador Mexico has been a long-standing supporter of the UN's work on digital cooperation, and particularly the importance of making sure that national priorities of developing countries and the Sustainable Development Goals are at the heart of the UN's work on digital. We're so honored to be here today. Ambassador, please.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. I want to thank Maria Francesca for inviting me to this important event. And I think that the first in its nature and scope. Of course, my gratitude goes to all the Tech and Boy Office team for the work and support. As Mexico has mentioned in various forums, it is imperative that persons, communities, and our countries adapt to the rapid technological change. While some have used technology to adapt to new realities, including the COVID-19 pandemic, others have been left in digital exclusion, falling further behind. Digital technologies are key drivers for the achievement of all the objectives of sustainable development. Nevertheless, inequalities affect people's access to the benefits of new technologies and risk further exacerbating those structural gaps. The challenges posed by digitalization require a response to address the issues of connectivity, data protection, human rights, misleading content, artificial intelligence, and digital public goods. In this scenario, the work of the United Nations, along with other stakeholders, is vital to address the fourth digital industry. Therefore, let me share some reflections on this. Mexico welcomes first the proposal from the Secretary General to prepare a global digital compact. Our common agenda charts an outstanding basis for discussions in this regard. We believe that it is timely to start consultations on a framework for international cooperation on digital issues and digital technology. That's number one. Secondly, we recognize the key role that agencies, funds, and programs of the United Nations in the implementation of innovative solutions to the challenges of their agendas. Today, we will hear some digital-related initiatives. You have received 489 inputs from 39 UN entities during the mapping exercise. This is an outstanding work, really. No. Thirdly, without a doubt, the work of the resident coordinators in the field is the cornerstone of the development system. 4 years into the reforms, the revitalized resident coordinator system, along with a new generation of country teams, have demonstrated stronger and impartial leadership at all levels. And that was very important to have, and we're very pleased to see that it's ongoing. The resident coordinator system is fundamental as well in the implementation of solutions in the field of science, technology, and innovation. And fourth, the Office of the Secretary General's Envoy on Technology has a key role coordinating to ensure that there is overall coherence of these initiatives, as well as for the implementation of the Secretary General's roadmap for digital cooperation recommendations. So you can count on Mexico's decided support all along the way. We believe and we're firm defenders and believers in the work that we have undertaken. And without further delay, I would like to thank all of you for attending this event. So welcome, and I'm pretty sure that it will be quite a success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, and indeed thank you and Mexico for your longstanding support and your important words. Let me now turn to Assistant Secretary General Maria Francesca Spatolisano, Assistant Secretary General DESA and Acting Envoy on Technology, for her opening remarks. Assistant Secretary General, please.
Thank you, Yuping. Excellencies, distinguished participants, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by thanking Her Excellency Ambassador Buenrostro, dear Alicia, thank you, for your reflections on the importance of the UN system strengthening its support to countries on digital. As many of you know, I wear 2 hats at the UN, and it is in both capacities as ASG of DESA and Acting Tech Envoy that I welcome you to this STI Forum side event, co-organized by the Office of the Secretary General's Envoy on Technology and the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs. And in both my roles, I've been struck by the ever-increasing engagement of the UN system on digital issues. The extent to which so many of the UN entities have been undertaking efforts related to digital technology across all manners of topics has been truly impressive. This has become even clearer during the COVID-19 pandemic, as so many activities have been transferred online, taking place virtually, as you have all experienced, in fact. Now, amidst all of this activity by the UN system, it is important that we maintain a sense of strategy and the necessary coordination so that all this work is undertaken, but within a broader framework with the SDGs at its heart. And this is why, for instance, in his roadmap for digital cooperation, the Secretary General committed to mapping the technology and digital parts and functions of the UN system. This is similar to the thinking underlying the mapping functions and mandates of Agenda 2030's technology facilitation mechanism. So the Office of the Secretary General's Envoy on Technology and DESA divisions for SDGs have teamed up, and we embarked on an initiative to survey and map the digital related initiatives within the UN system through the TFM Interagency Task Team. As Alicia said, with almost 500 submissions from almost 40 entities across the UN system, our mapping represents an attempt to better understand and bringing better coherence, greater coherence to the vast landscape of UN work in this area. Through this mapping, and thanks to the survey which supports it, we map the UN's digital programs and projects, institutional coordination mechanisms, reports and publications, and meetings and processes. We also looked at the distribution of these activities across regions, specific SDG targets, areas of the roadmap, as well as the level of partnership and collaboration that they entail. My colleagues will present the results in greater detail later in this side event. But what I found particularly interesting in the results was the following. One, the UN digital related work has been particularly focused on capacity building. That's important to note. Two, there is coverage of all 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Three, activities concentrate on region with the greatest need. And four, there is a robust potential for greater partnership. So these findings are aligned with what must be the ultimate goal of the UN's work, to concrete impact and improve the lives of people around the world in the countries and communities we serve. And this must be the same in the digital space as well, when it comes to ensuring coherent UN support. Given variances within and among countries and regions, there is no one-size-fits-all approach, we noted. Greater understanding is thus needed which digitalization approaches are most effective considering the political, economic, and social contexts. Such decisions must be need-driven and tailored to national circumstances on the basis of country-level assessments and better coordinated globally. And this is why I am especially pleased to have our United Nations resident coordinators from Mongolia and Cape Verde here today to share their perspectives and their experiences to ensure that our work is firmly grounded in national realities and experiences. Similarly, we have invited speakers from diverse UN agencies to present their digital initiatives and efforts, focusing on country-level implementation and the impact they have. This sharing of experiences and good practices can provide on-the-ground practical lessons that will then be useful, we think, to others with similar challenges. So in short, digital solutions for sustainable development are many and varied. And the UN system is already doing much, but what we need now is more scaled up, coherent, coordinated global digital capacity building support. We need to make these possibilities equally open and accessible to all countries and stakeholders, so that the UN can best support digital transformation in an inclusive, trustworthy, secure, and ethical manner. The joint mapping by the Tech Envoy and DESA, which fulfills a key recommendation of the Secretary General's Digital Cooperation Roadmap, is thus a means to strengthen synergies on digital within the UN and beyond. With this, the continued collaboration and efforts by UN system actors and greater multi-stakeholder partnerships, we can work together to realize the Secretary General's vision for a more open, free, and secure digital future for all. I thank you.
Thank you so much, ASG. We are now very honored to have our UN resident coordinators to give us a perspective from the country and the national level as to the importance of digital, as well as how the UN system is functioning in their countries and how they reflect on the importance of better UN system support on digital to their national experiences in their countries. We are very honored today to have our resident coordinators from Mongolia as well as Cape Verde to speak with us. So we'll start now with Mr. Tapan Mishra, resident coordinator of UN Mongolia. Tapan, please.
Thank you, Yuping. Can I have a PowerPoint to help me go through? Thank you so much. Let me first thank the United Nations Office of the Secretary General's Envoy to Technology and the UN DESA for organizing the side event on digitalization to achieve the SDGs on the margins of the STI forum, and for the opportunity to share our experience in Mongolia. I sincerely appreciate the opening remarks by Ambassador Alicia Buenrostro-Massieu, the Deputy Permanent Representative of Mexico to the United Nations, and Ms. Maria Francesca Spato-Lisano, the Assistant Secretary General of UN DESA, and acting as the Envoy on Technology, which sets the stage for this discussion and for also acknowledging the role of the resident coordinators. Thank you. Let's go to slide 2 on the context setting, if I may. Mongolia's long-term Sustainable Development Strategy, articulated in their Vision 2050 document, aims to transform the country into a leading regional power in terms of its social development, economic growth, and citizens' quality of life. In recognition of the critical role digital technology and connectivity plays in accelerating the achievement of the sustainable development, the Mongolian government has set out its 5-year mission to build a digital nation, harnessing data and technology to facilitate innovation, streamline public services, and diversify Mongolia's mining-reliant economy. The digital strategy encompasses 6 goals such as digital infrastructure, e-governance, information security, digital literacy and inclusion, innovation and production, as well as National Development Accelerator. Can we go to the next slide, please? So here, I want to highlight that the government places digitalization as a high priority, and most recently, the government approved the establishment of a new Ministry of Digital Development and Communications, MDDC, which used to be called as the Communication and Information Technology Authority, or CETA, and that indicates that the priority government gives to digital development and communications in its work. So over the last 2 years, the United Nations has been working closely with the government counterparts to support the Digital Nation strategy. This includes building a common approach to the United Nations support through the Digital Cooperation Plan of Action that we have developed within the UN, with all agencies included, working together with the private sector, international financial institutions, the IFIs, as well as other development partners. And the UN agencies provide specific support in the areas of digital literacy, universal access, e-governance, human rights, and innovation. We are planning, next slide, please. We are planning a digital dialogue globally to be held in late August this year, which will be a virtual event organized jointly by the government of Mongolia and the United Nations. It is aimed for like-minded countries with digital ambitions to meaningfully exchange experiences, challenges, lessons, and solutions to digital transformation focused on the country-level implementation. We would be partnering also with the Office of Tech Envoy, and we welcome member states and partners to participate in the global digital dialogue, which will be held with Mongolian government's leadership with the UN and we'll be sharing the invitation to engage with you soon after. In Mongolia, we're also working with the international financial institutions, including the World Bank, on the Smart Government 2 project. We are also working with domestic and internal private sector entities such as Mobicom, Facebook, and financials to explore areas to find related areas of digital literacy, digital skills training, fintech, and other areas of work. Next slide, please. Let me now take you through the challenges, opportunities, and lessons learned in the process of supporting the government of Mongolia to reach the digital ambitions. Let me share a few final reflections on the challenges and opportunities for Mongolia. Digitalization is a relatively new area of our work with limited expertise for both the United Nations and the government, especially the government. Building dynamic partnerships with a range of stakeholders takes time and capacity. In this regard, it is important for the United Nations to work together when working on large-scale initiatives, especially those with the IFIs. In Mongolia, the Digital Nation strategy is very comprehensive and ambitious, with a strong coordination of the United Nations needs to ensure collective and common approach. In this sense, it is important to first narrow the focus to a few strategic areas. We in Mongolia have identified digital literacy and inclusion as our focus for the United Nations. Maintaining and strengthening a close relationship with the relevant ministries is essential. This will help us to understand the shifting priorities and changes within the government so that we can lead well together. And finally, it is important to leverage the global, regional level expertise from across the United Nations system to support the country level work, as well as network with our development partners and the private sector. This together would be able to bring us together and work synergistically around achieving the goals that has been set out in the Digital Nation strategy. With that, I thank you for your attention, and we look forward to having you in our global digital dialogue when we go forward. So thank you. Back to you, Yuping.
Thank you so much, Tapan. And really, we hope that our engagement with the RCs and bringing the RCs to be part of this conversation in New York is precisely that leveraging and synergistic interaction between the global, regional, and country level that you spoke about. Our next speaker is the resident coordinator in UN Cabo Verde, Ms. Ana Patricia Graca. Ana, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much to the Office of the Secretary General's Envoys on Technology and UNDESA for the opportunity to share views also from the UN Cabo Verde on this important topic on digitalization to achieve the SDGs, and for the inspiring opening remarks also from Her Excellency Ambassador Alicia Massieu and ASG. I think that just to really highlight that in Cabo Verde, as you know, that it's a small island development state with 10 islands, connectivity and digital transformation is really a top national priority for the government, underpinning all economic, social, and environmental goals. And this was very much pushed against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic. Although there was already, a strategy prior to that, the pandemic did reveal the importance of digitalization in all areas and across sector, and build the momentum to bring us together to accelerate reaching digital inclusion. So my first message is that really having the national ownership, leadership, and of course, good partnerships are essential for this goal. A little bit to focus on the government of Cabo Verde. The government identified in its long-term sustainable development strategy, Ambition 2030, and in all the sector plans, the digital transformation of business, public administration, and governance as one of the 5 SDG accelerators. This was done together with the UN through a mainstreaming and accelerating policy mission. And digital transformation is one of the 5 drivers, accelerators for sustainable development for the country. The proposal is to really transform Cabo Verde into a cyber island, a center for the development of the digital economy, positioning the country as service provider and a reference in the region in terms of innovation and knowledge. And it is in full speed implementation. The Cabo Verde digital strategy that was done in a very inclusive manner, both with the World Bank and the UN, is in full implementation with 4 key main axes to build this regional ICT vision: connectivity, training, marketplace, and governance in general. The second message is that the UN, with its convening role, the wide capacity for global level pooling of expertise, as we can see from the SDGs champion digital initiative and the roadmap and this event, this capacity to really pool global level expertise from UN specialized agencies to assist with interagency resources and technical advice on good strategy, good practices, and the global cross-region collaboration is really well positioned. The UN is well positioned to be a key partner, promoting coherence and support for accelerating SDGs through the digitalization. The UNCT in Cabo Verde that has been following this process since the inception of the national development strategy and partnering with the World Bank and the EU is supporting the government through several initiatives in the digital transformation, focusing on 2 priorities coming from the UN Secretary General report, the roadmap for digital cooperation, where we see that we have more added value in at country level. The first one is on digital inclusion and breaking the barriers, and the second one on digital capacity building. And if you allow me just a few examples to share on what the UNCT has been doing within this framework, I'd like to just talk a little bit about the work that UNDP is doing, prototyping initiatives, powering digital innovation with young entrepreneurs, startups, business incubators, focusing on ICT and targeting women and girls' capacities for economic empowerment. UNICEF is using digital tools for inclusion of children with special needs, empowering girls in ICT with the Ministry of Education through the Coding Africa Challenge, but also stimulating learning of languages and mathematics in schools through digitalization, partnering also with ITU to boost connectivity in schools through the GIGA initiative. FAO is supporting the development of the fall army worm monitoring of early mechanisms, because this has been a huge plague in terms of agriculture in the country. So it is a mobile phone app that is used by farmers, community focal persons, and extension agents to be able to send vital data in real time about the infestation levels. WHO also supporting the e-guide Health City to guide the municipalities in interventions according to the Health Cities approach, and the integration of the National Health Observatory to really promote evidence-based decision-making and on health orientations. So this is just some examples of how we are focusing on really bridging the barriers on inclusion, looking at youth, women, girls, governance in general as the driver for eliminating some of those barriers. A final note on the challenges, and notably for small island development countries. And I think that my colleague Arsi from Mongolia did bring this up in the more general aspect, which is, digital transformation is an investment heavy for governments that are already faced with responding to multiple crises in a very constrained fiscal space. This is ever more serious in small island development states, as you know. Hence, there's still room to improve on having more innovative partnerships and collaboration for transferring technology, financing, and capacities across the globe, and particularly with the private sector. You know, Cabo Verde is a small island development state. Private sector is limited, and here we do need to be more agile in our support to government, because the pace of private sector is very, very fast, and we need to be able to support it in a more agile way if we want to really achieve meaningful recovery and acceleration for digital inclusion, to leaving no one behind. I thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna. And really, again, it has been such a pleasure to work with the RCs, and we at the headquarters really feel that the work that we are doing needs to be guided by precisely your perspectives, your reflections on what is most effective at the country level. We'd also like to say that Mongolia and Cabo Verde have really been digital cooperation champions and leading the way for the development system to engage with digital type issues. And for that, we are very grateful for the cooperation. At this point, I just want to see if any of the other panelists would like to say anything, or if there are any comments from the floor before we turn to our UN agencies as well as our presentation of mapping. And it might be a little bit early in the morning, perhaps, for the New York-based colleagues to come in with some comments, but we'll have another opportunity later in the program to also hear from attendees if anybody has any comments. I see some activity in the chat, but please also let us know if you'd like to take the floor and address any specific question or comments to our panelists and our speakers. So thank you again for those opening reflections and those very important perspectives from the country level. What we're going to do now is we're going to present the results of the mapping exercise that the Assistant Secretary General and Ambassador had mentioned earlier on. This is the joint product of work by the Office of the Secretary General's Envoy on Technology and the Department of Economic and Social Affairs, where we had surveyed all the UN agencies and collected their responses on specific digital related initiatives. And we had a tremendous outpouring of support and interest. And to take us through the findings, I will now invite my colleagues, Ms. Fan Zhang from the Office of Tech Envoy, Ms. Louisa Kupfer from the Department of Economic and Social Affairs. Fan, Louisa, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Yupeng. Ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to briefly present some of the findings of the UN system-wide mapping conducted by the Office of the Secretary General Envoy on Technology and the Department of Economic and Social Affairs as part of the interagency work under the technology facilitation mechanism. Next slide, please. Given the large number of UN entities' dedication to digital work, we believe that understanding the landscape of the digital-related initiatives across the UN system will allow stakeholders to explore the possibilities of consolidation, avoid duplication, and strengthen collaboration to harness digital technologies for the SDGs. This is why our offices undertook this exercise over the last year and the start of this year. The work responds to the roadmap for digital cooperation, as well as the mandate of the technology facilitation mechanism and its components as set out in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which aims to, and I quote, carry out a comprehensive mapping of and serve as a gateway for information existing STI initiatives, mechanisms, and programs within and beyond the UN, unquote. Next slide, please. Firstly, I would like to provide a quick overview of the mapping methodology. During the 2-month mapping exercise, almost 500 submissions were received. To be specific, there were 489 inputs from 39 entities. These included UN Secretariat entities like DPPA and UNDESA, more thematic UN Secretary offices like UNEP and UNCTAD, as well as UN specialized agencies and other entities such as ITU, FAO, UNDP, and others. 4 separate surveys were designed to classify the UN's work in 4 categories. Change slide, please. Category 1, programs and projects. Category 2, mechanisms. Category 3, major conferences and meetings. And lastly, category 4, major publications and reports. We can identify that the bulk of the UN's digital work consists of programs and projects, with 315 submissions at 64%. followed by publications and reports with 79 inputs, and then conferences and meetings with 52 contributions. Honing in on the UN's digital-related programs and projects, we can see that the UN activity around digital has really accelerated in recent years. The initial projects in the early 2000s were mainly on converting documents in digital copies and establishing online databases to increase accessibility. Since 2010, we can observe a consistent upward trend of UN entities implementing digital-related initiatives with a significant boost in just the last 2 to 3 years. Looking at the nature and substance of the UN digital activity, we can also see the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, which caused a global acceleration of digitalization and increased the use of digital technologies after most of the world entered lockdown. For instance, there were over 21 digital-related initiatives that were a specific response to the pandemic, covering areas such as interconnectivity, government emergency responses, and digital innovations to assist traveling during COVID. Interestingly, while our initial mapping survey was closed at the end of January, we already received submissions of 14 digital initiatives that just started this year, which is already 1/5 of initiatives that started in 2021. Based on the trend seen over previous years, we expect even more activity and the UN system to initiate even more work in the coming year. Next, I will give a quick overview of the geographical distribution of the UN's digital-related work. We will provide further analysis on this later. Africa and Asia are the location for most initiatives, with 246 and 229 inputs respectively, possibly responding to regions and countries with greatest need. For instance, 14 initiatives were specifically designed for vulnerable countries, especially least developed countries, focusing on boosting connectivity, promoting education, facilitating trade, and SMEs.
In the next slide, we can see that our mapping also asks UN agencies to identify which SDGs their initiative were aimed at. We can see that all 17 SDGs were covered, which is great, and a special focus on digitalization to achieve SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, SDG 9, industry, innovation and infrastructure, and SDG 17, partnership for the goals. However, the lowest number of UN digital initiatives were reported in environmental areas. For example, SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, SDG 7, affordable and clean energy, SDG 14, life below water, and SDG 15, life on land. Actually, those are themes of this year's SDG Forum. Given the importance of digital environmental nexus, this could be an important area for our future work. And that's something that actually Tech Envoy Office has been working and focusing on. Later in this event, we will also hear from UNEP on how they have addressed environmental issues and prevent disaster with the help of digital tools. Given the goal of our mapping is to catalyze better interagency and UN system-wide collaboration, we looked specifically at the level of collaboration and partnership in all the ongoing UN initiatives. There's room for improvement for sure, since 40% of initiatives were undertaken by only one agency. However, when projects were undertaken by UN entities with other partners, this then tended to be with multiple partners, signaling that when collaboration or partnership is consciously sought, the scale of collaboration tends to be broader. Such partnerships include the actors as diverse as governments, UN entities, private sectors, academia, and civil society groups. To examine the aspect of partnership and collaboration in greater detail, we see that multi-partner interagency initiatives also tend to be cross-continental, rather than just working on the single continent. For these digital-related initiatives that work in multiple regions, this tended to be through South-South and triangular collaboration, networking, and partnerships. Some of the projects were designed to be a model for interregional cooperation, facilitating knowledge sharing and technology transfer from and to participant countries, and could be replicated or extended to other countries with the similar situation. as well as establish regional network for multi-stakeholder exchange related to sustainable development. In our mapping exercise, we also ask UN agencies to map their initiative against a specific area of the roadmap for digital cooperation. As we can see from the bar chart, actually those blue icons are areas that pinned down in the roadmap, and the green or the teal ones are those we believe are very relevant to digital cooperation, so we added them in our survey exercise. Hence, we can see a promising number of initiatives that aim to boost the digital capacity building, as many entities focus on building national capacity with process in specific industries, for example, environment, agriculture, health, and education. Again, the importance of ensuring needs-driven and not top-down digital capacity building efforts is highlighted in the roadmap. Therefore, the UN work must be tailored to individual and national circumstances accordingly for maximum impact. It was also indicated by our resident coordinator who spoke just now, and also our subsequent presentations by the UN agencies. It will also highlight their specific initiatives to enhance the digital capacity of country-level efforts on the ground. Finally, in closing, and especially because we are now at the STI forum, there are areas where the UN is increasingly work to use new and emerging technologies. For instance, our mapping show that various UN agencies are innovating by deploying blockchain technology in areas such as peace building, environment, the government services, and so on. For instance, we will hear from WFP later on how they deploy blockchain in humanitarian situation. We do hope this initial presentation of mapping results has been interesting. The Tech Envoy Office and DESA are now looking into a fuller report at HLPF later this year, and also seeking to make this valuable information that's submitted by the agencies public online via a database. We welcome suggestions and further collaboration with all of you on this. Thank you very much. And for any further information, please feel free to reach out to Tech Envoy Office and DESA DSDG. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fan and Louisa. And for all watching, Fan and Louisa really have been the driving forces behind the mapping exercise. And we're so proud of the work they've done. And we really hope to build on this as the UN strengthens our collaborative efforts to better support countries. We're now turning to look at the specific initiatives, some of those that were submitted as part of the mapping. And we'd like to introduce you to some of the very important work that has been done by the UN system. And so we've invited various UN agencies to make a presentation on the digital-related programs and country-level impact of these specific programs. We will start with our colleague from UNAP, Ms. Marisol Estrella, on a specific initiative called Upscaling Community Resilience Through Ecosystem-Based Disaster Risk Reduction. Marisol has some PowerPoint slides to share with us on this important initiative. Marisol, can I give you the floor, please?
Thank you so much. Thank you to the UN Office of the SDGs Envoy on Technology, and also colleagues for their initial opening remarks, which are very, very, for me, inspiring, but also instructive in terms of what we really have to be thinking about and focusing on as we move forward in developing some of these tools. So for today, I mean, I will actually present on the specific digital tool that we have developed together with partners, and with keeping in mind our client countries, which is essentially highly vulnerable regions, impacted by increasing disaster and climate risks. So we work in a number of regions in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And part of the idea was to develop a tool that would be useful for countries in terms of their planning and decision-making regards to investments towards the area of nature-based solutions. So as you know, many of you may be very familiar about, nature-based solutions, which is now very much a big focus area at a global level, but also in many countries, exploring solutions to reduce disaster and climate risk by harnessing the benefits and services of nature and ecosystems. And so this tool is really something that we want to be fit for purpose for use at country level, at regional level for decision making. So let me present this tool, and you can tell me whether you think we've achieved our primary objective. So pass, please. Next slide. Yeah, thanks. So this opportunity mapping for ecosystem-based solutions for disaster and climate resilience is really a way to look at how ecosystems and ecosystem services can help reduce the impacts of hazards. And so that what we have done is, in fact, develop a digital interface, a GIS-based platform that interlace the data on ecosystems that's available globally and looking at human exposure to a number of hazards, and where areas, which will pinpoint areas where we could invest in either ecosystem conservation and or restoration. So the idea is to then help direct strategically some of our investments coming from the public sector, but also from the private sector, to scale up nature-based solutions that also contribute to reducing disaster and climate risks. Next, please. So this interface looks at a number of hazards, mainly like looking at tsunamis, tropical cyclones, landslides, and flooding to start. And then looking at some of the major habitats that we find in some of the regions where we work. So this includes forests, mangroves, seagrasses, and coral reefs. And we're in fact relying a lot on available global data sets that are open source. And this digital platform is also designed as an open source platform with the idea in mind that data, especially environmental data, may not be readily available in many countries where we work. And so the idea is to at least provide what is the available global data sets that is accessible, and have a tool to help for decision making. Pass, next please. So again, as I mentioned, we're essentially looking at how these different data layers interrelate with each other, and we are looking for areas where ecosystems can provide the maximum benefits towards reducing risk to these hazards. Next, please. So the way, I won't go into so much technical detail, but I'll just illustrate the thinking behind it. So just keep clicking. So first we map the hazards and the population exposure to these hazards, which are available online. And then we also then overlay the ecosystem data. And what we have as an output is finally an opportunity map index for prioritizing areas for either ecosystem restoration. So these are areas where ecosystems have been degraded and therefore require restoration actions. And then areas where in green, which would be areas that have ecosystems in place, that have benefits towards disaster and climate resilience, and therefore these are the actions to be taken would be in terms of protection or maintenance. So those are the sort of two high-level actions that this opportunity mapping tool can provide at a strategic level to countries. Next, please. Okay, so we can have analysis at either global level, at regional level, and at country level. Right now, the digital resolution is by 10 by 10 kilometers, so it's quite coarse. But we can, the tool allows for country level specific data to be also uploaded, so it allows for the resolution to be improved at the local level, at a country level, at a subnational level. So here what we see, I think there's an animation here, so just keep clicking. Yes, keep going. Thank you. So as I said, like the pink areas that show up are areas where we are directing for restoration, ecosystem restoration, in order to maximize benefits towards risk reduction. And then areas that are marked in green are those areas that have ecosystems still in place and are then prioritized for protection and or maintenance. So pass. Next. So we started developing this prototype tool in 2016, around 2016, and then what we tried to do over the last couple of years is to sort of use it at country level and present it at country level, and to see entry points for applying it for planning purposes at the country level. So you can see here the map for Indonesia, where almost 50% of the country actually has areas, opportunity areas for either ecosystem restoration or protection that yield maximum benefits for disaster and climate resilience. So that's just one example. Pass. So let me just close here by saying that we're continuing to develop the tool. What we have received as also feedback from our country counterparts and partners is that it would be interesting to also you have the tool overlay information with regards to specific sector analysis. So really targeting sector development and planning. And seeing how that then impacts on the opportunity area. So for example, now we are piloting the tool in Sri Lanka, where we would like to incorporate tourism and coastal area development data into the tool, and to see how the opportunity mapping results can inform and influence coastal area development decisions. And then another aspect that we're looking at is incorporating a climate change analysis component. It's very difficult, as you know, because climate data is also not necessarily forthcoming at country level, but it's hard enough at the global and regional level. So also country is very difficult to incorporate, to find the right variable to really use climate, to do proper climate change analysis. But we're going to try to do this in Sri Lanka. And then the third aspect that we're also looking into is then incorporating some vulnerability indicators into the tool. So the opportunity map will also incorporate areas of, let's say, higher vulnerability than others, so that vulnerability reduction is also one primary objective then of the opportunity map. So I think I'll close there. I mean, I think the next slide is just to show that this is the current work we're working with UNDP in Sri Lanka, with IUCN, sorry, in Sri Lanka, on how to use this opportunity mapping tool for their Big Jeff project in the tourism coastal area. I think I'll stop there. I think I hopefully stay within my allocated time.
Marisol, it was very interesting and very important, so we forgive you. But thank you so much. We can see a lot of important implications from the work that you're doing, and congratulations again for UNEP's really groundbreaking work in a lot of the digital related initiatives around the area of environmental sustainability and the impact on the environment. Our next speaker is from the Food and Agricultural Organization, Ms. Victoria Padula de Quadros, who will be presenting on the Global Individual Food Consumption Data Tool. We have a video to showcase this initiative, after which Ms. de Quadros will add some additional remarks. Can we have the video by FAO, please? technical difficulties a little bit with that video, but perhaps we can move to Victoria for your remarks.
Yes, that's okay. Okay, I will share my screen. So thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here today presenting the FAO WHO Gift platform. Yeah, it's really an honor, and I would like to thank the organizers for selecting our platform among the submissions made and for the opportunity to present today. So this is the platform, and it's hosted in the FAO website, and it's freely accessible online. This is a collaborative initiative between FAO and WHO, and our goal is to share data on what people eat and how much people eat for different food system actors to use. So I will focus the presentation on the data and indicators section of the platform. In this section, we have a list of all the dietary surveys that we have available in the platform. And if we select a survey, for example, this survey from Lao PDR from 2016, we can click on View Indicators, and we can see some infographics presenting the results of this survey. One innovative aspect of our platform is indeed to show summary statistics in a visual and easy to understand way, so that also users without a nutrition background can understand. So for example, here we can see from this figure, from this graph, the main sources of calcium in the diet of this population. This information is very useful and can be used, for example, to identify potential foods to increase or reduce in the diet. We can also filter the data set to select a specific population group within the bigger population of the data set. So for example, if we select female, we can see the results only for women. The platform also has information that are useful for understanding food safety, and we are also currently developing visuals related to dietary adequacy and diversity, and also to the environmental impact of diets in order to support climate change mitigation. Another key aspect of our platform is the sharing of microdata. So if we go back to the list of surveys that are available, we can download the microdata for this survey. And after accepting the terms of use and also offering a short description of the intended use of the data, the user can download the microdata files for further analysis. The sharing of microdata is very key to our initiative since very few low and middle income countries share microdata from dietary surveys publicly. So with this, I would like to conclude with saying that our aim is to support food system actors to achieve the SDGs, in particular SDG 2, by offering easy to understand infographics and microdata from dietary surveys. Thank you for your attention. Feel free to go to the platform and to contact us if you have any further questions. And I hope you can see the video fully as well, if possible. Thank you.
We apologize, Victoria. We will definitely show at the end of the event, and really hope that everyone can stay around, because it seems like such an interesting, useful, and practical tool that really goes to the heart of what we are, because you are what you eat. So we will definitely be showing later, and our apologies again. Our next speaker is from UN Habitat, Ms. Joy Mutai, who will be presenting on a citywide public space assessment tool that UN Habitat has developed. We also start with a video, which we will show in its entirety this time. And then we will follow by a presentation by Ms. Mutai. Can we have the video by UN Habitat, please?
In recent years, the role of digital technologies has become increasingly important for cities. For UN Habitat, the use of digital tools in cities must contribute to sustainable urban development, helping citizens make environmentally friendly choices, promoting inclusive economic growth, and ensuring civic participation by all. However, in many parts of the world, there are persistent digital divides across gender, geography, age, and income dimensions. The New Urban Agenda recognizes efforts to be made to make ICT more accessible to everyone. Since 2012, UN Habitat, through the Global Public Space Program, has worked to support cities realize SDG Goal 11, particularly Target 11.7, to achieve universal access to safe, inclusive, and accessible green and public spaces. The program adopts an integrated and interactive approach to sustainable public space development. This approach applies innovative and digital tools, starting from citywide public space assessment to promote evidence-based strategies and national policies for a more connected network of public spaces. The Citywide Public Space Inventory and Assessment Tool is a digital tool designed as a flexible framework to aid local governments and partners working in public space to assess the network, distribution, accessibility, quality, and quantity of their public spaces in a cost-effective way. The tool takes up a participatory and community-led approach. It utilizes a questionnaire that can be contextualized to fit different contexts and different priorities. Therefore, the assessment could be formulated to capture the broad and diverse aspects of public space, or it can emphasize certain thematic or geographical areas. Capturing data in the field usually means using paper. However, the Citywide Public Space Inventory and Assessment Tool uses an open source application called Kobo Collect, which allows the creation of a questionnaire form, fill it out on a mobile phone or tablet, store and view the aggregated information on a central server, and retrieve the aggregated data to one's computer for analysis. The Citywide Public Space Inventory and Assessment Tool has been widely adopted by cities. Since 2015, the tool has been regularly updated with feedback from its application in a variety of urban contexts. Through the application of the tool, 40 trainings to local governments, community members, and volunteers have been conducted on the use of the tool, but also the importance of public space and the need for data for policy and strategy development. There have been over 25 visioning workshops to develop recommendations and strategic interventions for the cities. For this, the Global Public Space Program has adopted a participatory approach through the block-by-block methodology, using Minecraft, the video game, to co-design public spaces with communities, boosting public participation and inclusion in urban planning and design processes. Additionally, through a collaboration with the technology company Ericsson, the Global Public Space Program began exploring how virtual and augmented reality can facilitate dialogue about urban design. Being able to see three-dimensional digital models in real life can make the process more engaging, make information easier to understand, and lower barriers to participation.
Thank you so much, Joy. If you'd like to add a few words, very much.
Yes, thank you very much. And I would first like to thank the Office of the Secretary General's Envoy to Technology and UNDESA for inviting me to this session. So I will just move to the next slide. What we have been seeing in terms of cities is a continuous spatial growth. It's a continuous spatial growth of urban areas with little consideration to develop green areas and public spaces, but also we see poor quality public spaces, which have an impact on the economy, environment, and also social impacts of the communities. So one of the key questions that we are asking is also why commission a public space assessment in cities? And in majority of the places we've been, there's an issue and a lack of inventory of public spaces. This inventory is important for local governments as they will be able to protect these spaces, but also report directly to SDG 11, specifically 11.7.1. And it also builds the capacity of the local government and partners to understand the regulatory frameworks that are in place, the institutional framework, but also how to allocate funding more efficiently in terms of implementation of public spaces. They are also able to tackle emerging issues when it comes to climate change, biodiversity loss, as well as encroachment of public spaces. One of the key things that we are seeing in cities is that now they want to mainstream public space both at the local level and the national level. So this tool supports them in understanding where are those gaps that they can actually implement. Move to the next slide. So the citywide public space assessment also utilizes some other data sources. I'm not sure if the slides are moving because I'm still seeing the first slide. Okay. The citywide public space assessment, we are seeing that it also utilizes other additional data sources such as satellite imagery to understand some of the other issues that are, that cities are facing, such as urban heat island effect, biodiversity loss, flooding in relation to green areas. So you can look at this as an example of Nairobi. You can see the circle on the center shows heat areas, and move to the next slide. And you can see it vis-a-vis green areas that are in the city. Move to the next slide. It also utilizes big data, just understanding people's patterns of movement, but also understanding how cities are walkable to ensure that there's equal access to public spaces. Maybe we can skim over through the next few slides, just showing some of the results that we are seeing in cities in relation to management of public spaces, accessibility, quality and quantity of the spaces. And then we can move straight to looking ahead, as I'm seeing that we are running out of time as well. I've seen the message. So just go to slide 11. This shows you, okay. So what we are seeing is that this data sets, which includes almost more than 100 indicators, is used to assess the spatial and non-spatial gaps that are in the cities. Sorry, move to slide 11. Just go, and it's called Looking Ahead. Next slide, next slide. Yes. Sorry, previous slide. So anyway, let me just speak from what we are doing, and maybe you can leave it at that slide, is that what we are seeing with the citywide public space assessment is that we assess almost 100 indicators, and it's important for cities to understand both the spatial and non-spatial gaps so that they are able to understand which areas in the city they could create new public spaces, but also areas within the public spaces that they need to upgrade and prioritize for upgrading. So in that way, we are seeing some examples of cities that are moving all the way from citywide strategy to implementation of public space projects. And this is where the Minecraft video game comes in, where we use it to engage communities, especially the most marginalized, to co-create and co-design public spaces. You can see that in this slide, there are some before and after pictures of public spaces that have been upgraded through, co-mapping from the citywide level all the way to co-creation and visioning with the communities. And in closing, I would say that the use of these innovative tools for mapping public spaces, co-designing and co-creating has promoted a dialogue among communities and local government, but also has brought different people and from different backgrounds together in towards a common vision and goal. It has also increased digital literacy in some of the areas we've been. They've not seen a computer before, but it's the first time they're interacting with it through video games, but also using the application to collect data for policy. And also it has been able to build both soft and hard skills for the community as they're able to present some of their findings to local governments. With that, I think I will close my remarks at this, and I'm open to any questions. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Joy. And we are running out of time. I'm so sorry. So if I ask all panelists to keep it short, it's amazing what everyone is doing. We'll find a way to put all the PowerPoints and videos up on our website as well, so that everybody can really look at these and reflect and engage further. Our next presentation is by UNCTAD, Mr. Torbjørn Fredrickson, on the E-Trade for Women initiative. We'll start with a video and then go to Torbjørn. Can we have the video, please?
E-commerce was and remains the biggest trend of the decade.
The use of digital technologies is definitely transforming our ecosystem.
If we don't bring more women on board in the digital ecosystem, we risk missing out on a huge potential, and existing gender equalities will widen.
The first challenge was to have a team, to build a team without money to pay them.
The biggest learning for us, and particularly for women, has been raising capital for an e-commerce business. Raising capital was difficult.
The challenge is that most of the women probably was thinking like, am I ready, how to do it, and things like that.
Being a woman, it's a challenge in any space, although there is still so much work to be done.
For us to have more women in the digital space, we really need to start early.
When other women see the success stories of other women in the ecosystem, they get courage, they get confidence that they too can go down that path of entrepreneurship.
We need to start when the girls are young and build the right kind of environment, ecosystem around them to encourage them to pursue whatever dreams, whatever ambitions that they have.
We need to challenge the digital stereotypes if we want to see more women in digital, in tech, in entrepreneurship.
Coaching and mentoring is one of the elements that is needed to break the barrier.
We need to let women know they can succeed in any field they set their minds to.
E-Trade for Women aims at including women and empowering them in the digital ecosystem.
And E-Trade for Women advocacy gives me an opportunity to play a role in helping the next generation of women that are looking to get into business, get into technology, leverage the digital economy to make a difference for themselves and for their communities.
I hope to encourage and inspire as many women to use their potential.
I wanted to set out an example that even the women in business that are not in the technology space or technology business itself can take so much benefit in the e-trade and how e-trade can democratize our opportunity to grow.
Being part of this initiative brings a greater responsibility.
Being an advocate and actually means to be able to empower, inspire, to connect, and to give a voice to other women.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Yuping, and hello, everyone. Greetings from Geneva and from UNCTAD. You just heard many wise words from our E-Trade for Women advocates, and I'm very pleased to have been given this opportunity to share some more information about this initiative. Next slide, please. It is a young initiative. It was created in 2019, grew out of something we call E-Trade for All, which is an initiative comprising 34 partners around the world. The initiative seeks to empower women digital entrepreneurs in developing countries with the goal of achieving a more gender-inclusive digital economy. Next slide, please. Here are 6 advocates from Cote d'Ivoire, Rwanda, Ecuador, Indonesia, the United Arab Emirates, and North Macedonia. Next slide, please. The target beneficiaries are women founders of businesses in the digital space in developing countries. Next slide, please. Some numbers: we have so far organized 8 what we call masterclasses, training sessions, for more than 200 women digital entrepreneurs from 40 developing countries. We have created 6 regional communities of digital entrepreneurs. Next slide, please. The masterclasses are 3-day empowerment events which combine inspirational and learning sessions with policy dialogues. They are always organized with one of the advocates. Next slide, please. Then we have the regional communities, which offer a safe space for members to share their experiences, develop new skills, and discover business opportunities. Programs are always tailored to the interest of the particular group of members. Next slide, please. The advocates also participate in various high-level events to be able to influence policy making at national, regional, and global level. And next slide, please. And with that, I'll close my remarks and thank you for your attention. And just stress that you're most welcome to reach out to us for more information or if you want to participate or collaborate with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Torbjörn, especially for being concise and really to the point. Our next presentation is by the World Food Programme, Jean-Martin Bauer, who will be presenting on blockchain. We'll start with a video and then over to Jean-Martin.
Registration is the first contact point that we have with the refugee, and this information is critical for various reasons. So we undertake registration so that we can be able to know who are the people we are working with. We also undertake registration so that we are able to identify those needs. We do have about 44, 45 organizations in the camp, including the different government agencies. Through data sharing, we are able to share that information so that they can use it in their own planning.
The UN World Foods Program mission is to end hunger. Traditionally, this has been easy, where people have been hungry. We have brewed food in kind, such as corn and rice, and we have just distributed it to the people who need it. For a few years now, we're also doing something we call cash-based transfers, which means instead of giving food outright to people, we enable them to purchase their own food. This can take the form of mobile money, paper vouchers, prepaid cards, or even outright cash sometimes. As we've embarked on this journey with cash-based transfers, some problems have emerged. Among them are the costs that we would have to pay to enable these transfers.
The distributions were taking very long.
في ناس يعني كانت تدشر مثلا في البطاقة الإلكترونية على سوريا وتطلع مثلا تروح تدشر عند جيرانهم عند حدا عند مثلا ظلوا ياخذوا عليها.
I was reading about blockchain and I thought perhaps blockchain could help us implement our work a little bit better.
So we use that for cross-checking, but also other services like the WFP supermarket.
In this case, they could go to one of the supermarkets in the camps and redeem their entitlement. They would scan their iris. That iris gets verified against the UNHCR database, and we get back a code for that person. And it's that code that triggers the private key on our system building blocks that allows the transaction to go through.
Using registration information to feed into the blockchain can be used in various different operations.
Of the collective aid that we're delivering to people in a certain country, and especially if we do all manage to collaborate as different humanitarian actors around the same neutral blockchain network, we could really then optimize our programs together in an unprecedented way.
It goes beyond just the identity, and it brings back the dignity of the person. And this is the most important thing, when you can be respected by who you are. And when you go, you don't need to show so many things to prove, because the information is there and the data is a reliable data. And this is what, with UNHCR registration, we have been able to put on the table for our partners and for the refugees.
Thank you, Yuping. Hi, colleagues. This is a humanitarian use case, different from the previous ones we've looked at. This blockchain, which is used by different agencies, was created in 2017, and it's gone to scale. It currently helps 1 million people each month. We've transferred over $300 million worth of assistance through the blockchain, $300 million in cash to people in need in a way that's fast, cost efficient, and that's also protective of privacy, which is really important in these contexts. Now, we have proven with this project, which is called Building Blocks, we have proven that blockchain-enabled cash transfers are scalable. The question is, now what? Or perhaps, is this really it with blockchain? Because to many of the people I talk to, it seems that we've only scratched the surface of the potential of blockchain in the humanitarian sector. Now, as my colleagues mentioned in the video, and you saw someone from HCR, someone from WFP, a properly implemented blockchain can help agencies coordinate themselves by improving interoperability between specific agency systems. The blockchain doesn't replace agency systems, it connects them in a way that's secure and private and effective. But we could go even further with blockchain and use it to decentralize and radically redistribute power. But to do this, we're actually held back by many challenges. These include disparate regulatory regimes, digital and financial literacy, connectivity, gender inclusion and diversity when we design and deploy these systems, scalability, on-ramps, off-ramps, identity, and many others. Whether blockchains ultimately live up to their transformative potential is up to the actions of each and every one of us. It's about whether we're ambitious enough to make blockchain an instrument of broader systems change. So I'll close by inviting us to ponder 3 considerations about blockchain. The number one is we need more voices and more champions in the system, in the sector, to push for more equal distribution of the benefits of distributed ledger technologies such as blockchain. We need to invest a lot more, this is number two, a lot more in decentralized finance solutions that would enable billions of unbanked people to finally access the financial services that the rest of us take for granted. And thirdly, and finally, we need to leverage decentralized autonomous organizations. These are the governance mechanisms of blockchains to bring decision-making back to people. If we get the governance right, we can change the world. And this is not easy because it implies that humanitarians would actually give up some of the control they currently have. On that note, back to you, Yuping. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Our next presentation is by Kizom Nogu on digital public goods for SDGs from UNDP. Digital public goods being a very key area of the digital cooperation roadmap and really an area of greater work by the UN system. Kizom?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Yuping, Your Excellency, Assistant Secretary General, colleagues. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. I lead digital programs at the Chief Digital Office at UNDP. And as the Secretary General, as well as our Administrator, Akin Schreiner, recognize digital as possibly the single greatest factor that's reshaping how we think about development and humanitarian contexts, and the bold goals that, that we at UNDP have on the second slide, that is really going to be enabled through digital. We can move to the second slide, please. Yes. Obviously, you know, COVID has accelerated, as we heard from Assistant Secretary General as well. In the course of just 1 year as UNDP, we worked with 82 countries to adopt 580 different digital solutions. So that's the broader context. So obviously it's a critical role. But if we go to the next slide, I want to speak today about UNDP's work in digital public goods and digital public infrastructure. On the next slide, where you will see that our role has really been to work together with a coalition of partners to lead global digital cooperation efforts guided by the Secretary General's roadmap to support countries on their whole of society digital transformation, to navigate very complex trade-offs, very complex set of stakeholders and technical capacities. But most importantly, because as the United Nations and particularly for UNDP to champion digital equality and national sovereignty within digital cooperation. As co-host of the Digital Public Goods Alliance together with UNICEF, UNDP, we give equal prominence to also the non-tech layers, governance, accountable frameworks, and the communities which are critical for the last mile inclusion and safeguards with a human rights-based approach. You will already see in front of you one of the three examples that I want to talk about today. The first example is a framework called OpenGDP, which was built by local innovators and utilized in the successful Ebola payments program for health workers back in 2015, and is now reused as a digital public good, supporting a number of countries and in crisis contexts, highlighting the fundamental role that digital ID and government-to-person or multi-purpose cash transfer ecosystems can play in helping a country to deliver services and social assistance to its people rapidly, effectively, and responsibly. And when the services that can enable a digital society are delivered through a digital public goods approach, which is open source digital solutions, it can advance the sustainable development goals, it can do no harm, and some of the safeguard issues are really enshrined in how the Digital Public Goods Alliance accredits these open source solutions and makes them SDGs Alliance. And they are adoptable, interoperable, and transparent. And they facilitate collaborations like the one between OpenGDP and MOSIP, which is around unlocking the power of digital identity by providing effective GDP or multi-purpose cash transfer frameworks that work seamlessly with identity platforms. And this is being tested in a number of countries, from Philippines to conversations that are ongoing that, I'm not at liberty to say so. The second example is, if we go to the next slide, the second example is the work that we as UNDP have been leading, again in terms of building coalitions with UNFCCC and a number of other climate leaders. And the challenge statement really is that under the Paris Agreement, countries have to build national digital registries to track and report mitigation outcomes and transfer them between national registries, and therefore make the framework for international cooperation, right? So instead of each country building their digital registries, UNDP with a coalition of partners is advocating for a digital public goods approach because we can build it once and deploy it to 50, 60, 70 countries, and therefore the scalability of the impact, the ability to work with a coalition of partners to really focus on designing with the right kind of safeguards and capabilities is the focus through the Digital Public Goods Alliance approach. And then the third example is an important reminder for all of us that digital cooperation, and we've heard this from a number of speakers who've spoken before me, must be anchored in and led with regional priorities, national priorities, right? So in the great continent of Africa, the vision of creating one market can be enabled by a vision of digital commons, digital standards, and approaches that are shared in principle digital public infrastructure that can enable seamless trade, seamless payments. So as UNDP, we strongly support the Africa Continental Free Trade Secretariat, and there's much work to be done to develop principles to enable that strong digital public goods approach to ensure the inclusion aspect, security, privacy, and openness of working together to really take those strategic priorities that continents have set, that countries have set, into actionable infrastructure through the digital public goods approach. So with this, I'm going to say thank you so much for having UNDP here, having me here, and back to you, Yuping.
Thank you so much, Kizo. We're going to ask for everybody's indulgence to go a few minutes over time so we have an opportunity to hear from attendees and participants as well if they'd like to take the floor. Our last speaker from the UN agencies is Walid from the International Telecommunications Union on Connect to Recover. We have a video and then to Walid.
$1.6 billion children pushed out of school. 165 million people infected. 114 million jobs lost. Where do we go from here? How do we recover? The COVID-19 pandemic has taken a toll, severely affecting the future of education, healthcare, and jobs. But it has also proved that broadband connectivity and digital infrastructure are not just a necessity, but a new global imperative.
In partnership with the government of Japan and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, ITU's Connect to Recover initiative aims to strengthen national digital infrastructure ecosystems to help countries remain operational and resilient in times of major global crises.
Our midterm vision for Connect to Recover is to reinforce the digital infrastructure and ecosystem of beneficiary countries.
Through the Connect to Recover initiative, we aim to enhance global connectivity to leave no one behind in this digital age. Connect to Recover uses a framework to measure a country's internet resilience in 3 areas: critical infrastructure, market, and network, with an aim to help nations identify gaps and implement solutions that strengthen their ICT infrastructure and preparedness for facing future shocks. To ensure scalability and impact, C2R collaborates with other ITU global initiatives such as GIGA, Be Healthy, Be Mobile, and Decent Jobs and Digital Skills to help countries build back better, with a focus on education, healthcare, and jobs. Want to know more? Join us. Help us connect to recover.
And help us build back better with broadband.
Thank you, dear colleagues. I'm honored to be here today. I would like to thank the envoy the Envoy on Technology office for having us. And I would like to share how impressed I am with like the insights that the colleagues shared. So the Connect to Recover initiative is a global methodology that we're developing at the ITU, a methodology to assess gaps and bottlenecks at a country level for the utilization of networks and digital technologies, and identify policies to respond and mitigate the consequences of COVID-19 pandemic and preparedness for future disasters, including those linked to natural disasters. So it's a multi-pronged methodology, and at the core of it, it's mapping. We're trying to map the infrastructure, the ICT infrastructure at the country level, and conduct country-level digital and internet resilience assessment. I think I'm going to share my screen, if I may. I'm going to try to see if this works. Are you able to see? I think everybody's able to see my screen here. So at the core of what we do is mapping of infrastructure for connectivity in order to be able to have an idea about the infrastructure capabilities to connect locations. One example of this is school mapping and connectivity. So what we do here, as you could see in the slide, is to identify connectivity gaps and come up with connection options, and put a dollar amount on the funding targets that will be required to connect these locations, and be able to drive informed decision making on how to improve the connectivity at different locations. One example of this is connecting schools in Rwanda, for example. The map here shows the amount of investment that is required to connect locations in these different areas, and there's color coding as the color goes as the color is deeper here, the amount of investment that is required in those areas is higher. So we try to come up with analytics, collect and clean the map data, and then put the map infra data on a visualization, and then identify the connection options for the unconnected areas, and create a reference network topology and calculate the investment that is required. One example of this in insights and analytics is financial inclusion, for example, in Mexico here. So the red highway lines here are infrastructure, ICT infrastructure, fiber connections and links. So we could see in the square, in the blue square here, this location is not really in the highway of connectivity, and it shows a direct correlation of non-financial inclusion, as we could see by the number of cash transactions, which is the color code in here in purple. Mapping of connection and infrastructure is very critical to assess the ability of ICT infrastructure to provide services and to help recover from the pandemic impact. This is what we do at the ITU, and thank you very much for allowing us to share this with you. Over back to you.
Thank you so much, Walid. And really, we've been so grateful to have the support of ITU and all of our UN partners as part of the work of the Secretary General's Envoy on Technology. We're just going to, very briefly before we close, see if there's any comments or interventions or statements from the floor. We had Mr. Guo Haodong, but I'm not sure if he's still around. Would any of the attendees like to ask any questions or interact with any of our panelists very briefly? If you could indicate quickly in the chat. I didn't see anything previously. I don't think I'm seeing anything now, but I'm seeing a lot of requests of further information and continued engagement on this and interest in this. So I think there really will be an opportunity to continue collaboration. We thank all of us for having all of you for being here today to really hear the perspectives of the UN agencies, from the UN resident coordinators, and to really engage with our speakers as well. Before we close, we're going to show the FAO video a little bit, the rest of the FAO video that we apologize again for cutting off, and then we'll close the session. And really, we ask for everyone to continue being engaged with the UN system and all of us, and don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. We'll share all the contact information as well. Thank you for being part of this event, and thank you again for being part of the STI Forum. And thank you so much, everybody. Goodbye and safe travels, virtually and otherwise. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.